Well, I am talking about being excited about something. Today, we have a very special guest with us. So we are doing a firm spotlight. These are some of my favorite episodes because we get to look inside some of the firms that are inside of our community and what apps are they using. So I know that there's a lot of conversation about which apps do I connect, which ones talk to which, and which combination of apps should I use. So Julie is joining us. She is a wealth of information. So we're going to get to do an intro here in a second. But before then, Heather, you know what I'm going to say.
That I need to introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Heather Satterley. I'm a CPA and I'm also the Director of Education and Media at Woodard. So my job over there is I am responsible for curating the content that we present at, or that is presented at our Scaling New Heights conference, which happens usually in June. I think it's been in June for a really long time now. So in June, and we're going to be in Orlando this year. I am also the editor of the Woodard Report. So if you haven't subscribed to that, you should, because we have awesome articles and content. And I also lead up our Instructor Writer Coalition, which is a group of accounting influencers and educators that meets and collaborates and talks about the future of accounting, of education and accounting. So those are all the things that I have going on. And I also do a little bit of content creation. I also do a little bit of presentations, and I build a lot of automation. So that's me.
Well, that's super fun and a lot of stuff. And, of course, overachiever. But I mean, I would say that our community is full of overachievers. Anybody who's taking on the accounting industry.
Can't be a slacker, that's for sure.
Right. That is faux show. And you're going to get to hear from Julie that her too. She's got a lot of things going on. So that's going to be fun to hear her intro if you are not familiar with Julie. My name is Liz Scott, and I do a lot of training development. So that's where I spend the majority of my time. And process evaluation has been something that I've enjoyed for a long time. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I enjoy creating training is, you have to be able to dig into, what is the actual problem. And a lot of times you have to discover that by pulling a lot of what if questions and getting those answers to finally get to what's the heart of the problem that's going on. So that's fun because I then get to pull in, once I understand the problem, here's a solution that might help. That doesn't always mean that it's an app. It sometimes just means we need to evaluate that process and make a shift. So very, very cool. It allows me to get really deep with a lot of the apps in our community to be able to find out what exactly is going on and make sure that the offerings are something that our community resonates with. So I'm fortunate. I feel very lucky to be here in the place that I am in my life.
And you have a firm.
Oh, yeah, I do. Yep. So glutton for punishment there. Yes. So Julie, welcome. I'm glad that you are here. And you have got a ton of things going on. One of the things that you shared when we just joined is that you were presenting not just today with us, but you have presented already a webinar today, and you've got something else going on. So you want to give us a little bit of intro for those who are not familiar, haven't got a chance to meet you yet.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me, and it's really exciting to be here and be part of this community. So back here, Bookkeeper is our oldest business. We started in 2008, which we're almost 16 years old. So we had a big party back in May to celebrate our 15th anniversary. It was pretty fun. But since then, we've actually spun off, and we offer a variety of accounting solutions. We've got payroll as a separate company. We do some controller and consulting work. We do some recruiting for accounting positions. And most recently, we've started an academy where we are teaching courses in bookkeeping. And the long-term plan is to have a whole array of intermediate and advanced courses in various topics. So yeah, we just you know, as you run into people who need accounting services of some kind or another, every single one of them has a different deficiency, right? So some of them have a staffing issue, some of them have a software problem that they can't solve. Some of them just don't have time to do the work themselves. And so we've kind of evolved over time. My business partner and I, we've evolved our businesses to serve all the different needs that we find in the marketplace. So yeah, that's who I am.
Well, that is definitely a lot going on, which makes you a really great candidate to share what your experience has been and some of the things that you have learned along the way.
Yeah,
So thank you for being willing to share those today.
absolutely.
Heather, do you want to give a little word about our 2023 sponsors?
So yeah, absolutely. So we are super grateful to all of our wonderful sponsors that you can see on our slide here. Totally stepped up to help us make Appy Hour a reality and bring this amazing content to all of you. So huge thank you to them. We're really excited to see many of them in just a couple of weeks at QuickBooks Connect, and we will be visiting with some of them and doing some really fun interviews. So look for that, and we hope to see you also at QuickBooks Connect. So huge thank you.
I agree. And, you know, one of the things that's so fun about the apps that are with us this year is that we're continuing to share out information. So if you're following along with the newsletter, you're seeing the stuff that's new, that's coming out. I mean, you know, Cinder is constantly creating some updates, and it's super fun to stay up with them. And Commerce Sync, same thing. You know, Client Hub was just on, and they've got some email integration. So it's fun to see over the course of the year just how they've evolved. And a lot of these apps are going to be with us through 2024. So we'll get to continue to hear into the next year.
Absolutely. And our newest sponsor, Dext, is going to be joining us soon. So we're going to be highlighting them in a webinar coming up. So it's exciting.
Very, very, very. So our agenda, we're going to go through just really kind of what are some of the key components of the firm that we're going to be featuring. So Julie's got 4 different firms. One of the firms that we're going to be talking about today has got some different tech. I think that you might even be talking about some of the other firms, because some of these apps are actually crossovers. Is that true, Julie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've taken advantage of some economies of scale by having, you know, having multiple companies access the same solution in some places, but not always. You know, it depends on some factors, which I'm sure we will end up talking about. So,
and Julie, I just have to ask a question. So
sure.
The name of your firm, of the accounting firm, the bookkeeping firm, is Backyard Bookkeeper. So I need to know the story of that. Like, did you actually start doing bookkeeping in a backyard, like in a shed, or like there's got to be an amazing story back there?
No. Nothing that fancy. It's much more mundane than that. So so it was, the whole idea was started by my best friend and I. She was in business school at the time, and I was helping her with her accounting courses, and she was just making fun of me that I was enjoying it so much, because she was struggling it. Like she is amazing at marketing and business strategy and all of the things that accounting is not. And she looked at me and she said, well, if you're so good at it and you like it so much, I would like to make some money off of you. So why don't we start a business? And then we started racking our brains for what the brand should be, and what the business name should be. And we could not come up with anything that was appealing to us, and anything that we thought of. And I remember, like, there were some things like Simple Office Solution, like they were more like appropriate to VA kinds of companies, and we couldn't find anything that was unique and that really felt right. And after a couple months, we were just driving to a client on the freeway, and there was a billboard for a company that I think they sold playground sets or something. But the name was part of the name was Backyard. And I don't know, it just popped into my head, backyard bookkeeper. Maybe it was her head. I don't even remember. But one of us said backyard bookkeeper. And we're like, ooh, it has alliteration. It sounds good. It's catchy. Okay, backyard bookkeeper it is. And it's been fun because it's evolved into this really organic brand, and it's friendly and it's approachable, and that really expresses very well who we are. So I'd like to claim some kind of genius that like this was a genius marketing idea or whatever, but no, it was kind of accidental and just, serendipity. But it fits our personality now and who we are as a company. So and yes, I love working from my backyard. Yeah. Laptop and a lawn chair and a bit of sunshine and
Awesome. Well, I think that's a wonderful story. So not mundane at all. So very good. Thank you.
Team size. Oh my gosh, that's a large team.
That's a lot of folks. And that's a lot of clients too. 600 clients. That's a big firm. So you make a difference in a lot of lives. So
we love it. It's been fun to grow, and we love our clients. We love working with them. We love fixing their problems. Everyone is a different puzzle.
Now, are your clients all over the country?
Yes.
Awesome. Do you do international as well?
No. I think we have some clients with some international business interests, but we don't do that bookkeeping. No.
Oh, awesome.
What's exciting about this is a lot of times we have firms that will come on and they might be a team of 1 or a team of 20. But whenever you really move into this client size of 600, that's whenever it really has to be efficient. So I think that today is going to be, kind of a discovery about how did you fit the puzzle pieces of apps together to be able to serve a client size of 600.
Yeah.
Now I want to go ahead and move over into this whole thought about, here we are, we're Appy Hour, we're talking about apps. We really like to understand what all apps are being used out there, but there's some key components whenever you're choosing apps, and everybody has a unique approach. So you kind of gave us some highlights as to some of the thoughts that you have around your app considerations, but feel free to brainstorm with us, like what are some of your processes?
Yeah. So it was my business partner, Alex, who, I don't know, a couple of years ago was like, man, we have way too many apps. Why do we have so many? Why are we paying for all of these things? And she also famously hates spreadsheets. She's also European, can't tell the difference between a short E and like a short I and a long E. So we joke about spreadsheets in our company quite a bit. She just like this is way too much data. It's confusing, how can we simplify? So our objective is always just like, can we reduce the number of things overall? Another thing that we look at is like, if we can get more out of one app. I'll give you an example. So we used to run our payroll through Gusto because it was free mainly. When you use Gusto, you get one subscription for free, right? So like that was great. But we realized we'd started using Bamboo as HR software. And we realized if we move our payroll over to Bamboo, that means our employees are actually going to interact with it way more often because their pay stubs are going to be in the same platform, And so even though it ended up being more expensive to do it that way, in the long term, it's better for the company, And then the streamlining thing, just if there's anything that you can do to just simplify the data that you're looking at. Our internal accountant a couple years ago said to me, you think that your problem is that you don't have enough data, but your real problem is that you have way too much. And so how do you then take all of this data and distill it into something that's actually useful to you? And that in many ways has defined the past couple of years in terms of operations, is how do we take all of this stuff that's going on and simplify it into something that we can wrap our heads around and we can optimize? We realized we started questioning our assumptions about things like, are we doing something this way because that's how we always did it, or because it has some kind of value? And often the answer is, no, you're spending a lot of time doing something that nobody ever looks at. I used to do job costing in QuickBooks Desktop down to payroll. And I realized at some point a couple of years ago, I never actually looked at the job costing reports. So when we switched to QuickBooks Online, I just nixed it. We're not doing that anymore.
Right.
No one looked at the numbers anyway. It was not useful. So.
Well, then it makes me wonder then, Julie, when we've got automate reporting in here, and even whenever we were talking to you, prior to this episode, gearing up for it, that was one of the areas of focus, is that, reporting and how are you going to gather all that data and then, spit it out in something. So what kind of reporting do you actually use every month?
We've been building a database that will analyze our performance. And so basically is looking at all of our time data, looking at our invoices and telling us how efficiently did we work to produce that income. And so that's been the really big data project. Other kinds of reporting, I'd say that was the main one. More recently, we've been working on ways to give some real-time data to our bookkeepers every week so that they know how they're doing and what they need to continue working on to improve their performance week to week. So,
it's interesting because that's an area that I think all of us are curious how the firm is doing. It is a lot of work to pull all of that information and then to look to see how each individual employee is performing. And, there's a lot of considerations. I think that, back a few years ago, it was, how do we compensate our employees? And part of it is quality and quantity.
Yeah.
That's hard to be able to analyze if you don't have all of the data. So good job pulling that together. Are you using an app for that, or did you create a database and that's where you're pulling the information from?
So we signed up for QuickBase, which some people may know used to be owned by Intuit, but they spun it off a few years ago. But it still has a very good integration with QuickBooks. And we had someone on staff who was an Excel wizard. And every accounting firm needs at least one Excel wizard. Like, not every accountant needs to be an Excel wizard, but you need to have at least one on staff. Anyway, she kind of stepped up and owned it, and she started building it, and she's incredible. So she's just built all of this stuff, and it automates all these things. And I know how to operate it. I don't necessarily know how to build it, but
that's part of utilizing your team too. Is
right.
Pulling in their talents.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So QuickBase automates all of that for us.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
you had talked about a team size of 40, and you're talking about, this Excel guru. That's part of your app selection process as well, is that team evaluation.
In our opinion, that's the first step, right? Because at the end of the day, Alex and I, as business owners, we're not going to be doing the work. We're not going to operate the stuff. We're not going to use the software. We'll look at the output, right? So it's our people who are going to have to actually use it. So, someone can come and give me a sales pitch, like, look at how great my software is, but at the end of the day, it's my team that has to use it, right? So what we have normally done is we pick the people who are most likely to be involved in using whatever software we're looking for a solution for. And we say, just start Googling it, find some companies that do what we're looking for, sign up for some demos, and come back and tell us what you like best. And so that's the first step. And then they come back and they pitch it to us like, here's 4 different things we looked at, and we like these 2 the best, And then that becomes this collaborative decision based on features we need, on pricing, you know, and how it's going to fit into our existing systems. And then, you know, then we sign up wherever possible for some kind of trial subscription, start putting stuff into it, make sure that it works as advertised. And then we figure out how to just fully implement it and invest. So,
you know, that system approach is really important, especially when you've got so many different people in play. And, you know, you say it so matter-of-factly that your team is the one who's doing the work, but that's actually a big part of being able to have that team of 40 is to trust them and to pass off things. I know a lot of us are very hands-on, and that's sometimes a difficult thing to do, is to trust somebody else with, this client's my baby, and this client's my baby, and this client, you know, they've got these special
don't
things.
have babies, just don't have, like as a business owner, you are just, that's a lesson I have to keep learning over and over again. Like, I get personally invested in something, whether it's a client or a project, and then it all, like, the entire team is waiting on me to do the next step. You know, that is a bad place to be. Right? So don't do it. I mean, you have to let the babies grow up and do their own thing, right?
And
So
celebrate it.
I love that,
yeah.
Julie. 'Cause
I am also not claiming by any means that we never have misfires, because definitely. And so maybe one thing that I would add to this, you know, as we're selecting apps and implementing them, is that we've learned to try to be clear about what the objective is. We're not signing up for something because it's cool. You know, we're not signing up for Uncat because it's cool. We're signing up for Uncat because it's potentially going to save us half an hour per client. You know, if you're paying for Uncat and it saves you 2 minutes per client per month, that is not a worthy use of Uncat, right? So, like, find the scenario, like, what's the goal? And you tell your team, this is the goal. This is what we want you to achieve with this solution. And then at the end of the day, they can come back and say, well, we didn't quite achieve it. And we can say, well, is it worth trying something else with it, or do we ditch it? You know, so you have to give them objectives, right? And without that, they're not going to have the direction to make the decisions on their own.
Well said. I mean, I appreciate your candor. Okay, so here's the juicy part that everybody's been waiting for. Your internal app stack. So all of your cute little apps are growing in the grass here.
I love this slide. It's adorable.
I think so too. You're the first person who's had this template, and maybe the only, I don't know, but it's fantastic. So
you know, like, we never chose green as a color, but you know, when it's backyard bookkeeper, of course it's green, right? Everything that we ever do is just full of greenery. I love it. It makes me happy.
well, it's a very nice earthy color, especially whenever you're doing what we do that's so robotic, and you need a little bit of green in your life.
You do.
Yeah, definitely.
And
So
love it.
do you want to talk us through your internal tech stack? And, you know, some of these apps are probably familiar and some of them are probably not.
Yeah. So we use Google currently for, you know, email and documents and everything. I've been telling our people internally, we're about 99% sure that next summer we need to switch to Microsoft. So get used to the idea now. And no one is happy when I announce that, but our IT guy says everyone's going to hate me for the first week. By the second week, they'll be groaning a little less. By week 4, everyone's going to be fine. So, but for now we're using Google, and it's fine. It's fine. And it's a great solution for smaller firms. I think it starts to break down at, you know, enterprise level, but it's doing okay for us. QuickBase, as I said, is our database. It's our CRM. We do some emailing from it. We use it for just tracking metrics associated with each bookkeeper, for each client. We use it to give quotes to clients. It's our sales pipeline, and We've been discussing other ways to use it. I just emailed our QuickBase expert in-house today that there's some payroll data, payroll parameters that I would like to start tracking for payroll clients. Anyway, QuickBase is great. It does so much for us. Anchor is, you guys have talked about Anchor on the show, I'm sure, right? So we got involved with Anchor 2 years ago. I don't know if we're at 2.5 years ago. My business partner took a meeting with them. They reached out over LinkedIn. They were kind of looking for some beta testers, and so we've been involved with them from the very beginning. We're one of their very first clients, and I think, don't quote me on it, but I think we're the very first client who fully adopted. Like we brought all of our clients onto the platform. And it's been really good for us. Cut our fees quite a bit. It's made the whole client onboarding process quite a bit smoother. So yeah, we use that for client onboarding, contracts, and our billing platform. Keeper is an enterprise solution that for password management. So all of our client passwords are stored there, and then we can share them with users as necessary. Asana is project management. That was one of those ones where I told our people, hey, we need something for this. Go test some solutions. I don't remember what all they tested. I know Monday.com was another one of them, but they came back and they liked Asana best. So, that's what we chose. QuickBooks is what we use internally, just for financial reporting. We also use the QuickBooks Time for our internal time tracking, and that all connects into QuickBase. Bamboo is our HR and payroll software. Loomly is what we currently use for social media posting, and our website's hosted on WordPress.
Nice. Okay. All right. So we're going to get to have a closer look at the way that you are using Anchor, because I think that it's going to highlight another way that to use the system and to have some flexibility and automation. So I think it's brilliant. Before we do, with Bamboo, you want to share just a little bit more about what Bamboo is?
So Bamboo's HR software. So we post job ads through Bamboo, and they post to Indeed for free, which is kind of a nice perk. And then you can manage your whole sales pipeline. So right now we're hiring for a payroll position. We've got a job ad up, applicants come in. The system automates some of the back and forth, so I can just use email templates and schedule appointments and all of that stuff. And so as we interview candidates, we collaborate as a team, make notes. And when we decide to hire, we move them to the hiring portion of the sales pipeline, and then we can go back into the regular part of Bamboo and just say, onboard this person, and it pulls some of the data through, sends out the paperwork. Now that we're doing payroll within Bamboo, all of that's in one place. So they get signed on, they sign their contract, they sign their NDA and non-solicitation agreement. They do the whole W-4 and direct deposit and all of that stuff in one place. And all of those documents get stored under the new employee profile that gets created. Then we also have performance notes that we put in there. We send out monthly questionnaires. How are you doing with your workload? Feedback from management all gets stored in that one place. Their entire job history as they move across teams, as they get raises. It's really, really nice. For the first time, we were using a different HR software, but we started using HR software 4 or 5 years ago. Good choice. Once you hit that, I don't know, if I had to do it over again, I'd probably start earlier, when we had 15 to 20 employees.
Well,
but
hearing you talk about being able to have job postings and pulling those over into hiring, that's unusual. I can't. I'm racking my brain to think about another solution out there that allows you to do job posting and evaluations, and then onboarding, and then evaluations ongoing. So that's a good find.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. The hiring process was always so stressful because it was this manual, emailing back and forth, trying to keep track of people who has been sent an invite for an appointment, who hasn't, like have software do it. And if
Yeah,
it's
all in one
integrated
place.
with your HR, it's amazing. So
Super smart. Super. Thank you for sharing, because that's a
yeah,
new
of
one.
course.
All right. So Anchor, we've had some firm spotlights before where we've talked about Anchor, but the thing that you're doing is these selected services. And so this has allowed you to be, again, you're pulling in efficiency, and this has allowed you to have some repetition and some consistency and some efficiency. So do you want to share, this kind of a unique way that you are using Anchor?
Yeah, so it's one of our internal accountants who really worked with Anchor a lot in the beginning and affected quite a bit of their development. And she came up with this system. She's the one who realized, like, in order to really make billing easy, you have to anticipate contingencies. And so the easiest way to illustrate this is with our payroll service. So one of the payroll products that we use, this will be in the external list in a minute, but we use Payroll Relief, sourced through a business in South Carolina called Guru. Anyway, so Payroll Relief, there's a base fee per client, and then they charge per check, as opposed to Gusto, who charges per employee, right? So there's a per check fee, and then there's a base fee, and that's fine and dandy. But you also, like, what about when your client calls you up and says, oh, I'm starting operations in a new state. Now I need you to set up accounts in a new state. And now we need to charge them hourly for some extra stuff that we're doing, right? Or then you've got another client who bounces a payroll, and you get charged a hefty fee, and you've got to figure out how you're going to bill the client for it, right? So our internal accountant came up with this model where we anticipate as many contingencies as we can, and we put it in the contract to begin with. And so, yeah, there's a setup fee. There's always an hourly component, whether or not the client expects, or whether or not we expect there to be hourly billing on any kind of consistent basis. It doesn't matter. We're going to have a line item for it. Then we, of course, have our base fee. We have our per check fee. And then we're also going to have two other line items. We're going to have what we called PSP fees. So that's payroll service provider fee. So if we get charged like a $5 fee because they had to manually correct somebody's direct deposit accounts, or the $100 fee because someone's transaction bounced, or whatever other fees they charge us, and we don't get a say in those, right? We just get the bill, and it gets withdrawn from our bank account. We need to be able to pass that fee on to our client. So we just have PSP fees on there as an option. If we get billed, we pass it to the client. The miscellaneous charges, same thing. Occasionally we go to like, we have to manually file a tax return, and sometimes that means printing it out and sticking it in the mail, and paying for registered postage. Sometimes that means e-filing it online, and so it's like $4.95 to e-file a 941. And we also need to be able to pass those on to the client. So we have a miscellaneous for our own fees that we're passing on. And so every single contract, even though I'm telling the client, here's your setup fee, this is base fee, this is the per check fee, there's these three other lines because stuff comes up. And what I tell the client is, when stuff comes up, we just want to be able to help you. We don't want to have to sign a new contract every single time. And this has made our lives so much easier. And it's been way better for the clients as well.
There's several things that I just want to celebrate here. The first thought is, oh my gosh, as a profession, there's so many times that there are miscellaneous things that happen, but most of the time, since we're not super social people by nature, what happens is we eat those fees.
Yeah.
And then you eat them again, and then it becomes a routine. And now the client is used to this behavior of, well, they're just going to eat it. I mean, it didn't cost me anything last time, so why should it cost me anything this time? And now you've gotten into this routine, and you're like, okay, well, I did it for this client. Am I also doing it for these other clients? And so you start eating all of these fees, and it's time, it's money, it's expenses, and you're losing money. And, as a profession, I think that a lot of times accounting firms are underpaid anyway. So if you're I wouldn't say wasting time. If you're spending time that is not going to be profitable or even break even, it's really hard to want to, first of all, continue to do those additional services. And it's hard to grow. It's hard to be able to hire. It's hard to have enough time to allow team members to go out and look at apps and have training and do some of the things that, your team gets to benefit from. But that is something that you have to create, that environment where your clients know there could be these unexpected charges, but we're not going to stop our operations. We're not going to hold off on performing that task until we get approval from you. And who sent that email and did they ever reply? It's just done. So a lot of brilliance in there.
I just thought of something else I would add. And that is, it can be a great tool, client-facing tool, when you are offering a discount to actually express that in Anchor. So we have a couple high volume clients where we reduce the per check fee, and so we leave that as our regular price, but discount it by some percentage. Those of you who pass on some of the wholesale discounts on QuickBooks products to your clients, do the same thing. And it makes it easier. It definitely makes it easier when QuickBooks changes their subscription pricing. Next time they raise their price and QuickBooks Plus goes from 90 to 100, then you change the base price and leave the discount. It's easier to explain to clients, because then clients don't come back to you and say, oh, you're raising my price again. You can say, no, QuickBooks is raising your price, and it's not your fault.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good building into the relationship expectations.
Love the flexibility of the types of billing. I just think that's something that really sets us apart, is that you have the ability to do manual and automatic and kind of create your own journey, because you do need that.
A lot of that is our internal accountant who worked with them and just demanded features. I think that discount feature, show the discount to the client. That was something she asked for specifically. So we've got good people on our team.
And, this is all focused on, a lot of this is focused on payroll, but, I'm thinking about e-commerce. There's always changes. There's always something that's happening. Shopify is updated. And so now you've got to go in and, fix the feeds. There's all kinds of places that you can spend time, and you don't want to always stop to talk to the client. You just want to be able to do the work and keep them moving. So nice layout here. I'll keep us moving over here to external apps.
Yeah, so I'll talk about these briefly. So QuickBooks, we mostly use QuickBooks Online. Most of us probably, hopefully, are aware QuickBooks Desktop has a expiration date. We don't know what the expiration date is, but it definitely has one, right? So we're working on getting people switched over to other platforms. We do have a few clients that are just intrinsically opposed to Intuit as a industry giant, and so they tend to be on other platforms. Xero, I think we've got someone on Zoho, maybe even Wave. So we've got a handful of other things. Cosmolex is a practice management software for law firms, and they're one of our big partners. So QuickBooks doesn't do trust accounts by itself very well, and Cosmolex is a really great platform, and it includes a full general ledger accounting solution. So that's one of our big software offerings for clients. Anchor, we've talked about plenty. And for our payroll clients, we've got Gusto and Guru are two main ones. We do a little bit with QuickBooks Online Payroll, but Guru is that company in South Carolina I was talking about. They've been a great partner of ours, and they were our choice when Intuit Online Payroll went away. We had this moment of rebellion, like, we didn't want to be forced over into QuickBooks payroll. And I was just really pissed that they got rid of IOP. Because we loved it, but Guru is where we landed, and we really like working with them. And then Bill and Divi are just worth mentioning. They're our partners of choice when clients need accounts payable or expense management. We will work with others. We've got a couple clients with like Ramp and some others, but Bill / Divi, I'm gonna have a hard time with that. That's who we start with when someone needs something. So, yeah.
I'm going to move us over here to Guru, and here's where it's fun to start talking about a solution that I'm not familiar with. So I was not familiar with Guru, and when you started talking about it, and that like many of us who loved IOP and it went away, you said there's got a lot of similarities, and the branding can be white labeled. So do you want to kind of give some more insights to this payroll solution?
Yeah, so we were able to, we can put our own logo on it. It's a backyard payroll. That's one of our, I mentioned we'd spin off companies. And it gives us more of that flexibility that we used to have, which is, on January 15th, you can still go in and issue a paycheck for December 31st for an S Corp owner who forgot to get back to you.
Right.
And we have more control over which taxes get paid when, which filings get paid when. If you use Gusto, for example, you're going to get an email. If you have any adjustments, they must be made by January 6th or something, which is just not enough time to finish, to close the books for the previous year and make sure that you have the correct total of medical expenses for your S Corp owner. I'm sorry, that's cutting it a little close there. So we like that degree of flexibility that we have.
And that's, super important whenever you've got so many payroll clients, because like you said in the very beginning, that yes, you have the bookkeeping firm, but there's more that's happening. And with having a payroll service that you're offering, you really need a payroll solution that's going to allow you to grow, to be flexible, to customize. There's a lot of pieces that you need inside of your visibility, easy access, easy changes. And so is that what you have found with Guru, is that it's flexible enough for you to?
Yes. And so we have conversations sometimes with their internal team who's handling our tax payments, hey, you need to let us do this portion of it, or we need to do manual filings for this client. So why don't you guys hold off on filing those returns and things like that. So it's been really good to have that kind of personal relationship with them. And they've been quite good to us. So, and it's nice to be able to work with a small business rather than, the Intuit giant, black hole of customer service reps.
Well, and what you have done is paid a whole lot of attention to not only the features that you hear about, but you've also dug into how do you actually navigate it, and how do you fit it into your environment. And that environment, like you said, includes your team and your clients. And if you're using a solution that is in both places, that's where your team is getting familiar, because they're also using it for their own pay. And then being able to share and have insights for clients, that's a big win.
Yeah.
Yep. Heather, anything you want to ask here?
No, this has been fantastic. You've shared a lot of great. I love your approach to technology. I love that you incorporate, you let your team drive. I think that that's really amazing. The only question that I do have, Julie, is you talk a lot about, the team experience and choosing that technology. How does it work from the client aspect? So many of your clients are interacting with the technology. And so how do you, what is that like? Do you pull your clients in to give feedback as well?
That's a good question. We've done it kind of organically in the past. We try to test things as best we can from the client viewpoint before we would use anything like that. Like we did that with Anchor.
Mhm.
When we started using Anchor, we migrated segments over, in chunks at a time. And for a little bit, it was only new clients that would go into Anchor, and make sure that that's working the way it's supposed to. And we worked with them to create a decent workflow for migrating existing clients onto the platform. And then we would take a segment at a time, like, one team, we'd look at one team and just migrate over their clients. So they would, like, we talk to them, this is what it's going to be like for the client. This is what you can expect, what you can tell them if they're talking to you about it, and that made it a little bit easier. A lot of these things, I don't know, when the client has a preference, like when they come to us either with a preference or with an existing system, we don't generally mess with it. If they come to us with zero, we're not, depending on the bookkeeper, they may or may not make comments about how they like QuickBooks better, but we're not going to pressure the client into changing. Sometimes we have clients who come to us with various kinds of proprietary software. We have a client with an import-export business that uses something that's just proprietary to his industry, and so we learn to use their software, I don't know, like a lot of times it doesn't. What the client cares about is the financial reporting. Like, just make sure it gets done and send me a report, and so they may not care about the other stuff.
Gotcha. So it really
yeah.
depends on the client. And then
Yeah.
follow up to your question, when you were talking about your clients that come to you with their own technology and their own systems, and you guys adapt to that, I did very much the same thing for most of my career. And then when we started to standardize we had adopted value pricing and, fixed fee pricing. One of the things that we had done was there was an additional fee for that, right? Because our clients, especially the new clients that we were bringing on, we would, try to standardize across our firm as much as possible. What are your thoughts on that? So if a client comes to you and they have a system that you now have to learn their process, how do you bill for that? Is there a different process than your client that doesn't have a system, you're using everything that's already part of your tech stack?
Yeah. It hasn't come up too many times. I mean, we have a big enough team now that more often than not, somebody on the team already knows it.
Oh.
Or has similar experience in a parallel product, or scenario. Again, it's just kind of a case-by-case basis, and we just try to be sensitive to the client. And sometimes it's, what's the client's budget for this, and what's our ability to absorb a new system. I'm trying to think of a recent example. I think I told the bookkeeper, be on the clock when you're on Zoom with them and they're showing you what to do and what they need. When you spend time going over it again yourself and making notes, that's time you should not be clocked into the client, or if you are then turning around and showing it to a teammate, don't clock into the client for that. The thing is, if a client comes to you with something proprietary and unique, they shouldn't be surprised that it's going to cost
100%. Yeah. Yep.
So, however, there has to be some gray area around that learning curve, and it's not, if you make a poor choice, like within the firm, if you make a poor choice of who to assign to that job, and it's somebody who is struggling to get it, the client shouldn't have to pay for that either, So it depends. I don't have a clear-cut answer for that.
Are you predominantly time billing or are you fixed fee billing, or is it a hybrid?
Mostly fixed fee, but there's some hybrid stuff, clients ask you to do extra stuff, or there's, cleanup work. Or it's October 14th.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
That was a funny one. One of the things that we always find helpful is when you're connecting apps, when Heather and I see the best adoption of those apps is because there is some type of relationship. So it's not just that a human is engaging with the technology, but more about a human is connecting with a human and there's a solution in between and you're working on that solution together. So have you taken an approach that's very similar whenever you're looking at these various different solutions?
Yeah. Well, here's a simple example to illustrate. Like, it was a huge turning point in our business when we were contacted by a local banker who wanted to bring us on as a client at his bank. And we're like, wait, that's a thing? We could have our own representative at the local bank. And we jumped ship quick. Like, seriously, we left our old bank that had never offered us that level of service. And I'm on texting terms with Josh, and I'll text him like, hey, can you help me with this thing? Or like, this didn't look the way I expected on the bank statement or whatever. I love that. It's huge when you can have that kind of relationship with a vendor of any kind. And when you're small, the bank's not going to pay that much attention to you, but when you have opportunities for those kinds of relationships, they can be life-changing for your business. So take advantage of them. And it's, especially for accountants, it can be hard to find that kind of synergy because, I can't tell you how many CPAs we've had conversations with where like, oh, we'd love to be able to refer business back and forth. And they say, yeah, that'd be great. And then they never send us any referrals, even though we send them several. It's just like when you can find the right person who's actually going to return the favor. Just cherish those relationships, I guess. And it's really my business partner who's the relationship builder. She's the one who I think she just kind of went through a phase a couple of years ago where she's like, you know what, I say no to everybody. I'm just going to say yes to some things. So she got in LinkedIn, and you know how you get random emails or random messages from people?
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
This is scary.
how are you happy with your current bookkeeper? Would you be open to having like, I'm okay with my current bookkeeper. Thank you. Yeah. And so she just said, you know what, I'm going to say yes to a few things. So she got on LinkedIn and she picked a few in her messages to say yes to. And that's where our relationship with Anchor came from. She had a meeting with Rome and Omri and got to know them and really hit it off. And okay, let's explore this some more, and so she's been the catalyst for all of our important relationships. If you've got someone in your business who's good at relationships, put them in charge of this. And then with each of your vendors, make sure you keep track of who your current assigned account rep is.
Right.
And take them up on their when they reach out and they're like, hey, it's time for an annual checkup. You want to meet and see how you're doing? Take advantage of that. That's really useful. And when you get involved with a company that's still early stage or developing a new product, it's really fun and can be extremely useful to be part of the development of that product, and that's been our experience with Anchor, for example. You must, like, we harped on this for a long time. It's in our written contract that we can change pricing with a certain amount of notice. You must build that into your software.
Right.
I told them multiple times it was a deal breaker, and it took them a little bit to do it, but they did eventually. And so now that's a feature, that you can enable. You can update a contract, and then after a waiting period, it automatically becomes effective if the client doesn't take any action. So
And that's just human behavior. I mean, if there's not a
Mhm.
problem, sometimes entrepreneurs move on to the next thing. We know how that works.
Right.
It totally makes sense. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. I have enjoyed what you've shared, and your approach is
It's been fun. Thank you.
No, this has
unique.
been fantastic. And in the chat, people are saying thank you as well. So this was just a wealth of knowledge today. Fantastic. Tammy says this is the best happy hour yet. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, fantastic. All
Heather,
right. Yes, so we are hitting the road. We are going to Happy Hour is joining forces with Woodard and going on the road to 4 cities across the US to help practitioners design a practice advancement plan using the Woodard's ideal practice model. So if you would like to elevate your practice, please come join us. And our first one's in Atlanta, then we're in Austin. That's going to be happening really soon in just a couple of weeks. And then in December, we're going to be hitting greater Philadelphia area and Costa Mesa, California. So love to have you join us. If you would like to attend, amazing event. You can save $50 with Appy 50. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you.
And then YouTube. So all of our recordings make it over to YouTube. I think that one day Heather sat and looked that we had, what was that, like 200 episodes or somewhere about there, with there being 700 apps. I mean, we've covered quite a few solutions.
We have quite the library.
So
if you're looking for deep dives into certain apps, there's a really good chance you're going to find it on our YouTube channel. Plus, you can get some drink recipes too.
That's right. And then we also have the Happy Hour Facebook Lounge. This is where we hang out. We get to ask questions from each other. So it's just a nice place to be able to collaborate. And then live. So we are going to be live. I think I counted it down today that my first flight out of town is in 13 days. So that's pretty close. That's right around the corner. And we will be broadcasting live at QuickBooks Connect. We're going to have several different apps that join us live. We're going to be able to talk to them on the exhibit hall floor. So really looking forward to that. And then we have a deep dive of Ignition that's going to be in December. And then we'll have our annual New Year's Eve party. So lots to celebrate in the coming new year. You know, I always have to stop and think, am I going to have a New Year's resolution this year or not? So it hasn't been decided yet. Do I have that in me? I don't know. How about you, Heather?
My resolution is to have the best year ever in 2024. So
Okay.
I think that's like the best resolution. It's just to have the best year ever. So
to live the best life. Yep. Okay. All right. I can adopt that one. It
Yeah,
seems at least, put your toe in that one. All right. I can commit.
awesome. So Julie, thank you again. This was fantastic. And
Thank you.
really appreciate your time, sharing your wealth of knowledge, and come back anytime, please.
Thanks. It's fun. I enjoy nerding out a little bit about accounting. So this is
you're in the right
good crowd.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure, and to you and to everyone, have a great rest of your week, and we are happy that you joined us today.
Take care.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.